Hey guys, in today's video, I bring you a surprising and transformative story. Let's learn the story of Leora Vance, a woman who literally faced death and came back with unbelievable revelations about the Pope, the apocalypse, and the hidden truth about the universe. What she saw on the other side will challenge everything you believe and bring a powerful message we all need to hear. So, before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any incredible content like this. Now get ready for a journey that will change your outlook on life and the afterlife. My story begins on an ordinary night in August 2005 in Flagstaff, Arizona. The city, known for its clear skies and towering mountains, was on alert due to an approaching electrical storm. I, however, didn't pay much attention. I was at home, distracted, cleaning the kitchen while the local radio blared safety warnings. I never imagined that a storm could change my life in such a radical way. The rain started timidly, a gentle patter against the windows, but soon turned into a relentless roar. Lightning cut across the sky like blades of light, and the sound of thunder was so loud it made the window panes vibrate. The lights in the house began to flicker, and I felt the air around me fill with a strange, almost palpable energy. I should turn off the devices, I muttered to myself as I watched the flashes through the window. He was holding a wet towel, his hands still damp from the dishes he had just washed. I didn't know that that moment of hesitation would put me directly on the path to something that would change not just my life, but my entire perception of the universe. Then it happened. There was no warning, no time to react. Lightning struck the house's metal antenna and found its way to me. The impact was devastating. The pain was so intense that it seemed impossible to survive it. My right arm, which was holding the towel, seemed to be on fire. The sensation was as if every cell in my body was bursting into flames. Suddenly, everything changed. There was no more pain, just an eerie silence. When I opened my eyes, I noticed something terribly wrong. I was looking at my own body, lying on the kitchen floor. My hair was singed, my skin looked gray, and the towel was still smoking. But he didn't feel anything. There was no pain, no fear, just a surreal calm. Am I dead? I thought. But no one responded. My mind was confused, trying to understand what was happening. It was then that I felt a gentle presence, something that dispelled the loneliness and dread that was beginning to form. "You're safe," said a voice that seemed to come from inside me. At first, it was difficult to understand what was happening. I floated around the kitchen, watching my body motionless on the floor, with the same bewilderment one feels when seeing a strange scene in a movie. It was all so familiar and, at the same time, so out of place. The sound of the storm outside seemed muffled, as if it were miles away. I tried to move. To my surprise, I succeeded, but it wasn't a physical movement. I simply slid through space. As if the concept of gravity no longer existed, I passed through the kitchen and entered the living room. I recognized every detail. The sofa, the table with a scratch that I had caused years before, the curtains faded by the sun, but there was something different. Everything seemed brighter, more vivid, as if reality had gained a new dimension. "This isn't real. It must be a dream," I whispered, but my voice didn't make a sound. I knew something profound had changed, but my mind still struggled to find logic amid the chaos. That's when I noticed something curious. Objects that normally seemed insignificant now exuded a subtle energy. The small table line, for example, seemed to tell a story, as if every moment it was touched or moved were recorded on it. As I wandered, I noticed that I didn't feel hungry, thirsty, or tired. My mind was incredibly alert, yet free from the weight of worldly concerns. I felt no fear, just a strange sense of anticipation, as if something big was about to happen. And then it happened. A soft light began to fill the room. It didn't come from a light bulb or the storm outside. It was golden, pink, and seemed to pulse, like a beating heart. The more the light intensified, the more I felt my mind calm down. It wasn't just a light, it was a presence. "You're safe," I heard again, but now with more clarity. The voice was serene, but carried an undeniable authority. There was no judgment in her, just a comforting certainty that I wasn't alone. The light began to envelop everything around me, and the scenery of my home slowly disappeared. The walls dissolved, and I was transported to a space of golden and pink clouds. Something inside me knew I was leaving for a place that transcends the physical world. When the golden, pinkish light completely enveloped me, I realized that it wasn't just a visual phenomenon. She carried a living, pulsing energy that seemed to whisper directly to my soul. The feeling was indescribable. It was as if all the fears, hurts, and doubts in my life had been instantly dissolved, leaving only absolute peace and a feeling of pure love. "You're safe," the voice repeated, but this time it seemed to come from everywhere at once. There was no physical sound, but I could feel the words in every fiber of my being. It was comforting, almost like a hug without the touch. I didn't know who or what was speaking, but within me, a certainty took shape. I was in the presence of God. The light began to move, and I realized I was being guided. There were no hands holding me back, but it felt like a gentle wind was gently carrying me forward. The scenery around me changed again. Now, I was in a vast field of clouds that were parting to reveal the most beautiful garden I could ever imagine. The heavenly garden was like nothing on earth. Each leaf, each petal, shone with its own light, as if they were alive. The colors were more intense, almost otherworldly, and the air seemed full of music, even though no instruments were playing. It was a place that exuded life, love, and perfect harmony. It was then that I saw them, two figures walking towards me. They seemed to radiate their own light, but at the same time maintained a human appearance. As they got closer, I recognized their faces, and my heart almost exploded with emotion. "Nathan," I whispered, still trying to process what I was seeing. He was my older brother, who died in a car accident when I was 12. Next to him was Eleanor, my little sister, who passed away before I was even born. They smiled, radiant, as if time and pain had never existed. "We're here, Leora," Nathan said, and his voice was like honey. Eleanor, even though I had never met her, enveloped me in a hug so tender that tears began to flow from my eyes, or whatever I had at that moment. "You are not alone," said Eleanor. "Never was." I felt complete, like every broken part of me had been restored. There was no need for words to explain the love we shared. There, in the celestial garden, everything was understood without effort, and the divine presence seemed to intensify every feeling, making everything even deeper. As I stood there, surrounded by divine light and in the company of my brothers, I felt a change in the environment. The heavenly garden seemed to expand, and a sense of anticipation came over me. In the distance, a kind of giant screen began to form, but it wasn't like the screens we know on Earth. It was alive, pulsating, composed of light and energy, almost as if it had its own consciousness. "Now you will see your journey," said the voice, soft and welcoming. There was no judgment in his words, just love. Suddenly, my entire life began to unfold before me. Every moment, from my birth to that exact moment, started to be displayed on the screen. The memories came vividly, and I could relive them as if I were there again, but with one special detail. I wasn't just seeing my life, I also felt the emotions of everyone who had been affected by my actions. The first moment I saw was me, as a child, running around the yard with Nathan, while Eleanor watched us from a place that I now understood to be the spirit world. I remembered how Nathan helped me with my homework, and how I looked up to him, but I also saw a time when I fought with him over something trivial, leaving him hurt. There was no condemnation, just the realization of the impact of my words. "Every action you take creates waves," said the voice. "These waves touch everyone around you in ways you don't realize." Further on, I saw a moment when I helped a coworker who was going through difficulties. On Earth, I had completely forgotten about it, but there, in the heavenly garden, I realized how that small gesture had generated a cascade of kindness that spread to other people. "That's the boomerang effect," the voice explained. "What you project into the universe always comes back to you. Love generates love. Pain begets pain." I also reviewed times when I failed myself, allowing fear or anger to control me. But even in those moments, I didn't feel judgment, just love. It was as if the purpose of this review was not to punish me, but to teach me. "You are deeply loved," said the voice. "Not because of what you did or didn't do, but because you exist. That's how I see all my children." A wave of emotion washed over me. For the first time, I fully understood that God's love was unconditional. He didn't make distinctions between right and wrong like I imagined. He just loved. It was there that I began to understand the greatest lesson of all. Life on Earth is a gift, a place to learn, love, and grow. Our actions matter, but not because they determine a final judgment. They matter because they shape the world we create for each other. As my life review began to dissolve, I felt the environment shift again. The heavenly garden, with its beauty and serenity, gave way to something entirely different. I now found myself in a monumental cathedral, which exuded grandeur and mystery. Its walls were dark stone, adorned with stained glass that cast a cold, heavy light, a contrast to the welcoming warmth I had felt in the garden. Something inside me knew this place wasn't completely holy. In the center of the cathedral, on a high altar, was the board, surrounded by a crowd of figures I recognized as world leaders. They were dressed in formal attire and their faces were shadowed, almost indistinct. The atmosphere was strangely oppressive. Although the environment had religious symbols, the energy there was dense and unsettling, as if a shadow hovered over everything. The voice that was so loving and comforting before spoke again, but this time with a more serious tone. "You must see what is hidden." I watched as the Pope raised his hands, as if he was conducting a ceremony. However, instead of inspiring peace, his gesture seemed like a performance, something rehearsed and empty. All around him, world leaders whispered among themselves, in a language I couldn't identify. No matter how much they tried to hide their intentions, something in their posture revealed that they were conspiring. It was then that the truth began to reveal itself. "Many use faith as a tool of control," said the voice. "It is not the Pope himself, but the forces that surround him, that manipulate and distort the truth." Images began to appear like flashes in my mind. Crowds kneeling in prayer, unaware that they were being used for dark interests. I saw documents being signed in secret, alliances being made between governments and religious organizations, all with the purpose of maintaining centralized power. "The problem is not faith," the voice explained, as if understanding my confusion. "Faith is a powerful and pure force, but here it is distorted, used as a weapon to deceive and divide." The revelation was overwhelming. I had always seen the Pope as a symbol of holiness and spiritual leadership. Now he understood that he was just a piece in a much larger game, manipulated by hidden forces operating in the shadows. However, one thing became clear. The Pope himself was not the villain. He was a fallible man, used by those who dominated power structures. The vision ended with a final message: "Have compassion, even for those in the midst of this chaos. Change will only come through love, not hate." I was being called to see beyond appearances and understand that evil was not absolute, but a distortion of the truth. After the revelation in the cathedral, the scenario changed again. I was transported to a vast and incomprehensible space. There was no floor or ceiling, just an immensity of lights, shapes and colors that pulsed in harmony. Everything seemed interconnected, like a cosmic fabric that vibrated with life. The voice returned, softer this time, as if it wanted to prepare me for something bigger. "Now you will see the whole," she said. Floating in this infinite space, I was guided through different places, each one more surprising than the last. First, I arrived at a colossal building that seemed to be made of crystal and light. "This is a spiritual hospital," the voice explained. There, I saw souls receiving care and comfort. Some were shrouded in bluish light, while others appeared to rest on beds of pure energy. I knew instinctively that these were souls who had experienced deep trauma on Earth. "Not all pains end in death," said the voice, "but here, they find healing." Afterwards, I was taken to a gigantic library. The shelves stretched infinitely, and each book radiated its own light. When I touched one of them, I didn't see words, but images and sensations. It was as if all the knowledge in the universe was stored there. The voice explained to me that this was the library of universal knowledge, a place where souls could access the wisdom accumulated since the beginning of creation. "You have been here before, between your lives," the voice revealed. Finally, I was led to a vision of the universe itself. The vastness was overwhelming, but at the same time welcoming. I saw galaxies spinning like whirlwinds of light, stars being born and dying in glorious explosions, and planets inhabited by life forms I could never imagine. The interconnectedness of everything was evident. There was no separation. Every star, planet, and living being was part of a single intricate system. It was then that the voice said something that changed my perspective forever. "You are not just part of the universe. You are the universe. Just as each cell is part of a body, you are part of a greater whole." This realization filled me with humility and reverence. I understood that God was not a distant or separate figure, but was present in everything and everyone. He was in the twinkling of the stars, the blowing of the wind, and even in the people I found difficult to love. The love I felt was so vast it almost overwhelmed me. It wasn't just God's love for me, it was God's love for all creation. "You must take this message back," said the voice. "Teach others that they too are divine, that they are deeply loved, and that they each carry a part of me." The scenery began to fade, and I felt a growing sadness at the thought of leaving this place. But I knew my journey wasn't over yet. When the vast universe began to disappear, I felt once again enveloped by the golden and pink light that guided me. However, this time, there was an urgency in the atmosphere, as if something important was about to be revealed. The soft voice that accompanied me became firmer. "Now you will see what can become," she said, with a serious tone that prepared me for what was to come. Suddenly, I was taken to a series of scenes that seemed to be projected on a colossal screen in front of me. But these were not images of memories or heavenly places. They were visions of a future that awaited Earth. In the beginning, I saw vibrant beauty, dense forests and crystal-clear rivers, cities where people lived in harmony, working together to care for the planet. There was laughter, celebrations, and a sense of unity. "This is possible," said the voice, "if humanity chooses the path of love." But then, the images changed abruptly. The scenario of hope was replaced by visions of devastation. Saw earthquakes swallowing entire cities, tsunamis, giants advancing over continents, and the sky filled with oppressive darkness. Forests were reduced to ashes, and animals fled fires that seemed endless. People ran through the streets, one screaming, desperate for help. A new scene emerged, showing the collapse of financial systems, empty offices, markets collapsing, and people exchanging basic goods as if money had lost all value. "They will return to barter," said the voice, with a mixture of sadness and resignation. I saw gold and silver coins being used, as if humanity had gone back centuries. The next vision was even more unsettling. I saw political uprisings. Governments were overthrown, and disorder reigned. People fought in the streets, not just for survival, but for power. Conflicts and wars arose as a consequence of selfishness and collective greed. Country flags were burned, and borders previously marked on maps seemed to dissolve into total chaos. However, the voice intervened, offering hope in the midst of these terrible visions. "These scenarios are not set in stone," she said. "They are a possibility, not a certainty. The future can be shaped by each person's choice. Love is the key to avoiding these disasters." The last images I saw were of individuals spreading kindness, caring for each other, and restoring balance to the earth. Small actions, like sharing food or comforting someone, created ripples of transformation. The message was clear. Change began in every human heart. At the end of these visions, I was left with an overwhelming sense of responsibility. "Why show me this?" I asked mentally. "Because you are part of this change," replied the voice. "Every person who chooses love creates a better future for everyone." The weight of these words hit me deeply. I knew I needed to share what I saw so that others could make different choices too. Before the vision ended, I heard one last sentence. "The future is in each person's hands." After witnessing the apocalyptic visions and hopeful scenarios for humanity, I was once again enveloped by the golden light that seemed to be the guiding thread of my journey. The environment around me changed, becoming more serene and welcoming. I felt a powerful presence approaching, but unlike what I had ever experienced, this presence radiated an almost human closeness, as if it were someone I had known for a long time. And then, he appeared. It wasn't like the images I had seen in churches, the Jesus portrayed in paintings or statues. He was simple and human, but at the same time he emanated such a deep light and love that my tears began to fall before he even said anything. "You need not fear," he said, in a voice so soft it seemed to pierce through every layer of my being. "I was always with you." I didn't know what to say. The words stuck in my throat, but he seemed to understand everything I wanted to express. He came closer, placing his hand on my shoulder, and I immediately felt a wave of warmth and comfort wash over me. All my doubts, all the questions I always carried about faith and spirituality, seemed irrelevant in his presence. "Why me?" I finally managed to ask. "Because you have something to share," he replied, "something the world needs to hear." He reached out and showed me a reflection, not a mirror, but a vision of myself. It was me, but different. I looked more confident, more serene, and there was a light in my eyes that I had never recognized before. "You carry the divine within you," he explained. "Just like every person, this is the greatest truth that many still don't understand. God is not separate from you. He lives in every heart, in every act of kindness, in every moment of love." As he spoke, the words resonated like truths I had always known, but could never articulate. He challenged me to see this divinity not only in myself, but also in other people, including those who had caused me pain. "It's easy to love those who already love you," he said with a gentle smile. "But true love is seeing God even in those who have hurt you." I was overcome by a mixture of joy and resistance. How could I love those who had hurt me? He seemed to read my thoughts and responded before I could ask the question. "It does not mean justifying evil, but recognizing that they are also part of the whole. Forgiveness is the key to your own freedom." Before leaving, he left me with one last message. "You will never be alone. Take this to the world. God is love, and He is present in everything and everyone." As he disappeared, I felt the depth of His presence remain within me, like an indelible mark on my soul. As Jesus' presence began to fade, I was overcome with a mixture of serenity and sadness. I knew my journey was coming to an end, but the thought of leaving that place, that state of absolute love and peace, seemed almost unbearable. The golden light that had guided me there began to dim, and I felt my being pulled back. It wasn't a smooth transition. It was like I was being sucked into a narrow tunnel, each second bringing an increasing feeling of heaviness. The voice that had accompanied me throughout the journey spoke one last time. "Now it is time to return. Take what you learned with you." Suddenly, I was thrown back into my body with an impact so brutal that shock took over me. It was like wearing a suit that was too tight, heavy and uncomfortable. Every part of my body seemed to scream in pain, and the smell of burning flesh still permeated the air. I opened my eyes with difficulty and realized that I was lying on the kitchen floor. My right arm was still smoking, and there was a distant sound, as if someone were knocking on the front door. I tried to move, but the pain was paralyzing. My breathing was uneven, each breath feeling like a battle. When I finally managed to turn my head, I saw that part of the table was singed, and the towel I was holding before the lightning was completely burned. The weight of my body felt unbearable, and a new wave of panic hit me. For a moment, I thought I was caught between two worlds, alive enough to feel pain, but unable to truly come back to life. Minutes later, I heard voices. My neighbors had seen the flash of lightning and came to check if I was okay. The door was broken down, and I heard exclamations of astonishment as they found me on the floor. "Leora, you're alive!" one of them screamed. But at that moment, the word "live" seemed to lose its meaning. I knew I had returned to my body, but I also knew that something inside me had changed forever. I was rushed to the hospital, where doctors checked the damage. The burns were severe, and tests showed that my heart had suffered a significant impact. Despite the physical pain, my spirit seemed enveloped in a pink bubble of calm and spiritual connection. Over the next few days and weeks, I experienced health crises, including heart problems and seizures. Every moment of physical pain was a constant reminder that life on earth is fragile, but now I knew there was something beyond that, something greater, something eternal. It was during these moments of recovery that I began to reflect on everything I had experienced. Every lesson, every vision, and every word spoken on the heavenly journey came back to me clearly, as if written in fire in my soul. As I recovered in the hospital, surrounded by physical pain and the uncertainty of the future, I realized that I had returned different. It wasn't just an emotional or mental change, but something deeper, something that touched the essence of my being. I felt as if a new life had been placed before me, an opportunity to start over with the clarity of the lessons I had learned. The first and most powerful lesson was the God's unconditional love. Since I was little, my view of God had been shaped by the rigidity of religions, which often associated divinity with judgment and fear. Now, I knew that God was not a distant judge, but a loving presence that indwells everyone and everything. Every human being, regardless of their mistakes, was deeply loved. This truth dissolved years of guilt and resentment that I carried in my heart. I also learned that every action, no matter how small it may seem, has a profound impact on the universe. I understood that everything we project, love or negativity, comes back to us. I saw how small acts of kindness that I thought were insignificant created ripples that transformed the world in ways I could never have imagined. This realization inspired me to live with more intention, choosing words and gestures that could bring light to the lives I touched. Visions of humanity's future were an urgent call to action. I knew that the disasters I witnessed could be avoided if more people chose love over selfishness. I decided my mission would be to share what I had learned, in hopes that my words would inspire others to make different choices. If each of us could see the divinity in others, perhaps we could reverse the course I saw in the visions. Another important lesson was the power of forgiveness. Jesus challenged me to see the divinity even in the people who had hurt me, and that was the hardest task. But as I began to practice forgiveness, I felt a huge weight being lifted off of me. Forgiving did not mean justifying evil, but freeing myself from the poison that hatred creates within us. It was an act of self-love and connection with God. Finally, I understood that real beauty comes from within. During my experience, there was no judgment for my flaws or outward appearances, just acceptance for who I was, a part of divine creation. This gave me a new perspective on my self-esteem and how to see others. In the months that followed, I began sharing my story with anyone who would listen. At first, some people reacted with skepticism, but many were moved and found hope in my words. I decided to write about my experience so that the message could reach more hearts. My life was never the same again. The woman who lived trapped in hurts and insecurities gave way to someone who chooses every day love, compassion, and acceptance. I know the path is not easy, but I now see life as a gift, a place of learning, connection, and growth. I still face the challenges of earthly existence, but now I know that I am never alone. God is in everything, in everyone, and in the love we share with each other. This is the greatest truth I carry with me, and I hope you can find it within yourself too. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.